Hey guys, welcome back to Four Oaks Crafts. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to make a Christmas tree on the wood lathe made out of exotic woods. So join with me, let's get started. Alright, to make the Christmas trees, I'm going to be using a 1.5 inch long by 3 inch wide piece of poplar as my waste block. And I'm going to be gluing the blank to the waste block, and this waste block is basically screwed onto my faceplate that came with my lathe. And once I screwed it on there, then you can screw the whole thing onto the spindle of the headstock. I'm going to be using 1.5 by 1.5 inch wide and 3 inch long bottle stopper blanks. That's basically what they are, and you can buy these at the woodworking store in this convenient size, but they also are a good size to make these miniature Christmas trees. If you want to make your trees, a little bit longer or wider, then you're going to have to do something like, turning a tenon on the piece and then mounting it into a, 4-jaw scroll chuck like this one. So the pieces I'm going to be using are relatively small. They do just fine though, using CA glue and being glued to the waste block. The CA glue does hold it very securely. You just have to make sure to let the CA glue cure, for about 20 or 30 minutes before turning. And then we're also going to have the tailstock supporting it on this end for most of the turning that we're going to do. So before I do each Christmas tree, I'm going to have to true up the face of the waste block, and what I'll do is I'll use a skew to do that, or I may use my square carbide tool to true this up each time. All right, welcome to this first segment, and we're going to start off with one of our exotic woods called Purple Heart for the first Christmas tree. And in this first segment, I'm going to show you how to mount this to a waste block. So I've got a blank here that's about 3 inches long and 1.5 inches wide, 1.5 inches the other direction. I've squared it up well on each end, so it's going to be square to the block. And I'm going to be using medium CA glue to mount this to the waste block. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and marked this one side. I've marked the center, as you can see. I'm going to apply the glue pretty liberally to the waste block side. Alright, next I'm going to line this other end up with the tailstock and just simply press it. Lock the tailstock down and then apply a little bit of pressure on the tailstock side. Looks like it's squared up pretty well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow the glue to set for a while, and then we should be ready to start turning this one. All right, the glue has had time to set up and dry, and I've tested it out. Got my everything set up here on my lathe, ready to turn. I'm going to be using my carbide tool, so I'm going to be using the square tool and the round tool, and we're going to see how well those work. I haven't used them a whole lot, but we wanted to give them a try on this project. And I'm also going to be using a couple of parting tools. I'm going to be using a 1/8 of an inch parting tool and a 1/4 of an inch parting tool, and you'll see in the video how I'm going to use those. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this blank round as much as I can, and then we're going to taper it down to the shape of a tree. And then what I'll do for this first tree is I'm going to use the 1/8 parting tool, and I'm going to put some notches in here, try to evenly space them, and then we'll go from there. Notice that I'm keeping this tool, these carbide tools need to be parallel with the workbench. Okay, as you can see here, I have basically rounded the blank and tapered it to the shape of a tree. Now I'm keeping the tailstock in place because I want really that support, but at a certain point I'm going to remove this, but I'm going to only do it at the very last minute when I need to shape the very tip of this tree. So I think what I'll do next is I'll go ahead and put some of the notches in place. Too far in with these notches, or you might end up parting the tree off, and you don't want to do that. At this point you don't. Alright, at this point what I've got to do is I'm going to leave the part that's glued on. That's where I'm going to part it at the very end, and I want to leave that as sort of my base. But I do want to put a little bit of a trunk on the end of this. So for that I'm going to use the 1/4 inch parting tool. Alright, I'll probably leave that trunk at about around 1/2 inch. I think I'll go ahead and do a little bit of sanding. Start with about 220 grit. Then work our way up to some finer grit sandpaper. Alright, now I'm going to remove the tailstock, and I'm going to finish this tip off just a little bit, bring it to a little bit more of a point, I guess you could say. With that, we'll try the square tool. Okay, so I've got the tree shaped and sanded like I want it, and so I think before I part this off, I'm going to put a little bit of friction polish on here to give it a little bit of a seal and protection. For this, I'm going to use I'm just going to use some Pins Plus. Okay, so I'll probably put 1 or 2 more coats of this on here, let it dry a little bit between coats. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is part the tree off. All right, there you go. There's the finished tree. Base turned out a little thinner than maybe I wanted it to. I'm going to take this over to the disc sander and get this little projection sanded down, and then we should have a nice little Purple Heart Christmas tree. Okay, here I've got a piece of Osage Orange that I'm trying to turn, and using a combination. Just want to show you a different variation on the Christmas tree and the different shapes you can get with this. So I'm using the real thin parting tool here, and then going in, and then coming back and using the combination of the square carbide tool and the detail tool as well. So I'll just show you how that's working. Here is the finished Osage Orange tree, getting ready to just part it off, but I thought it turned out really well. Again, I used a combination of the thin parting tool and the square chisel and the detail chisel to make the shapes on here. Okay, this is another piece of Osage Orange, and for this design, basically what I'm going to do is use a skew chisel and put some small notches in here, and then use a wire burner to make some decorative rings around this tree. All right, for the final Christmas tree, I'm going to use this beautiful laminated piece of wood. As you can see, it's got different exotic woods in here. I think it's got some yellow heart, maybe some rosewood, some zebra wood, and maybe even some lace wood or maple. But what I'm going to do, since this is laminated and it's so beautiful, all I'm going to do is do a basic taper, and that's it. I'm not going to add any additional shapes on there. Alright, here again, here's the laminated piece, and this thing turned out beautiful. I just put some polish, friction polish on there, and all I did is I used the round chisel, square chisel, and the parting tool, and now I'll part this off and we'll have another Christmas tree. Well, hey guys, here are the finished Christmas trees. Made 6 of them all together. Also made one here out of olive, Bethlehem olive, and another one here out of Chechen hardwood. You can also make these using deer antler, and I've got a tutorial for that. I'm going to put a link to that down in the description field. These are really fun to make, super easy, as you can see in the video. It doesn't take a lot of time, it doesn't take a whole lot of skills to make them. You can take them and set them on tabletop to display. You can also turn these into Christmas ornaments if you want to hang them on your tree. They're certainly light enough for that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please leave some comments if you have any suggestions or questions. And please like us, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, happy woodworking.